All right, so now we're back for some more mystery book. We're on chapter 2, and it's called Developing the System of Control. Let's get started. Perhaps it's because Klaus Schwab released his first book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, in 2016, with the expectation of a Hillary Clinton win of the presidency, but instead got a Donald Trump, that Schwab didn't really get the world to pay attention to the ideas in his book. Maybe that's why in 2018, he published his second book, Shaping the Future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Shaping the Future, which he was hoping might have a greater impact. It's like Margaret Mitchell publishing Gone with the Wind in 1936, not having it become a massive bestseller, then coming back a few years later with the sequel, Really Gone with the Wind. Really gone. Really blown away. I imagine Schwab hanging out among all of his rich friends in Davos, Switzerland, scratching his head and saying, "Why didn't Hillary win?" And I don't know a single person who voted for Donald Trump. Maybe like Hillary after 2008, when she got blown away by Barack Obama, Schwab said, well, let's give it another try. Maybe the problem was with Mark Benioff and his forward Schwab thinks. Yeah, Salesforce is a big company in San Francisco, and all the Silicon Valley people know about it. But maybe I need a bigger name. Let me think. Oh, I've got it. How about Microsoft? I'll get their CEO, Satya Nadella, and that will make people stand up and notice. Bill Gates founded Microsoft, and everybody loves Bill Gates. However, Nadella doesn't do much better than Benioff. Nadella begins by worshiping at the altar of Schwab in the World Economic Forum with this cringeworthy opening. And this is what she says. Through insightful convenings and publishing, the World Economic Forum and its founder, Klaus Schwab, have continued to cast a bright light on both the opportunities and the challenges of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They are right to confront zero-sum thinking about the coming wave of new technologies by pointing out that their evolution is entirely within our power. If you're wondering much about Satya Nadella, the bottom of the first page of the foreword gives you a quick little information bite. Satya Nadella is CEO of Microsoft and author of Hit Refresh, the quest to rediscover Microsoft's soul and imagine a better future for everyone. Do you ever wonder why all these business types often use religious language in their writing, when they probably don't have much religion in the first place? Don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of business leaders talking about business. I just think it's probably a good idea to stay in that lane in regards to speech and the way that they articulate themselves. As I read these books, many of the so-called business leaders strike me as nothing more than overachieving high school students who want to show the principal how much better they understand the school than anybody else. Then, when the principal is sufficiently impressed, ask to be appointed to student council rather than go through the messy work of being elected by the student body. Here's a sample of this thinking from Nadella. So let's see, this is another excerpt from her. The confluence of data with massive computational storage and cognitive power will transform industry and society at every level, creating opportunities that were once unimaginable, from health and education to agriculture, manufacturing, and services. My company and others are betting on the convergence of several important technology shifts: mixed reality, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. With mixed reality, we are building the ultimate computing experience, one in which your field of view becomes a computing surface. Your digital world and your physical world becomes one, So like you're an avatar, like that movie. Well, not like the movie Avatar, but there's like another one that's involves, I think Bruce Willis was in it. Yes. The data apps and even the colleagues and friends on your phone or tablet will be available anywhere you want to access them, while you're working in your office, visiting a customer, or collaborating with colleagues in a conference room. So now we're going back to analysis. I don't mean to denigrate the technological achievements of companies like Microsoft. It's simply that I think they've overstated their value to the average person. Let's take the idea that your apps can go with you on your phone or laptop. That's great. Maybe I can go to a conference, get up an hour or two early and do a little work on my laptop or check emails on my phone. However, I still probably need to hit the gym, take a shower, get some coffee, get something to eat before the first speaker takes the stage at 9 a.m. Thanks to big tech, I can do a little more work in my day. But I don't think that calls for a reordering of society. I don't think that calls for ordering society. And I agree. I don't think that calls for reordering society. I still have to get my ass down to the gym and pedal my 6 miles if I want to have the slightest bit of health benefit. And if by chance I'm staying in a nice hotel and the bike at the gym has a screen that shows a video of bicycling through the French countryside as I pump my legs, well, that's all nice and good. But just because I've seen a little of the French countryside while I'm sweating on the bike doesn't mean I have any increased appreciation or understanding of French culture. Like Schwab, Nadella wants to dazzle you with the technological changes, because if you're a little intimidated, it makes you easier to control. You won't raise your hand to ask a question because you don't want to sound stupid. Maybe that's my superpower. I don't mind sounding stupid. And don't you always remember your teacher saying there's no such thing as a stupid question? Yeah, but then we forget that and still insecurities play. But when they can't answer my stupid questions, well, who's the stupid one? Here's Nadella hoping you'll feel intimidated and hand over power to Klaus Schwab and his Davos buddies. So here's another excerpt that she's said before. Similarly, industry and society must come together to focus on empowering both people and organizations by democratizing access to intelligence to help solve our most pressing challenges. For example, if AI is one of technology's top priorities, healthcare is surely one of AI's most urgent applications. Coupled with mixed reality, the cloud, and business optimization tools, AI will be central to healthcare transformation underway on the science bench, in the clinic, and throughout medical center operations. That paragraph certainly wasn't put together for somebody with the slightest bit of liberal arts training. It makes me wonder if they've ever read a book that held their attention. Okay, so Nadella writes, industry and society must come together for the purpose of democratizing intelligence. Why in God's name do industry and society have to come together for the purpose of democratizing intelligence, whatever the hell that means? Does some homeless person in Los Angeles hold one of the hidden keys to artificial intelligence? Is there some third grader in Wisconsin who, if we could just get her to accept the need to democratize intelligence, all would be good in the world? This is pretty funny. All right, I accept that good healthcare is a priority. What do we know about good health? Don't get overweight. Don't be overweight. Eat a healthy diet, exercise, have good social relationships. On that last point, good social relationships, I suggest you read what Malcolm Gladwell has written about their importance in a short essay titled The Rosetto Mystery. Here's the anomaly about this small Pennsylvania town, first noticed by a man named Stuart Wolf in the 1950s. And here it goes. Wolf was a physician. He studied digestion and the stomach and taught in the medical school at the University of Oklahoma. He spent his summers on a farm in Pennsylvania, not far from Rosetto, although that, of course, didn't mean much, since Rosetto was so much in its own world that it was possible to live in the next town and never know about it, or never know much about it. one of the times when we were up there for the summer, this would have been in the late 1950s. I was invited to give a talk at the local medical society, Wolf said several years later in the interview. After the talk was over, one of the local doctors invited me to have a beer. And while we were having a drink, he said, "You know, I've been practicing for 17 years. I get patients from all over, and I rarely find anyone from Roseto under the age of 65 with heart disease." This was a shocking finding to Wolf, as in the late 1950s, heart attacks were the leading cause of death for men under the age of 65. How could heart attacks be so rare in this small Pennsylvania town, populated mainly by immigrants from a small town in southern Italy? The researchers looked at genetics, food, and exercise and could find no correlation. Then they started looking at the social structure of the town itself. What Wolf began to realize was that the secret of Roseto wasn't diet or exercise or genes or location. It had to be Roseto itself. As Brunn and Wolf walked around the town, they figured out why. They looked at how Rosetans visited one another, stopping to chat in Italian on the street, say, or cooking for one another in their backyards. They learned about the extended family clans that underlay the town's social structure. They saw how many homes had 3 generations living under one roof, and how much respect grandparents commanded. They went to Mass at Our Lady of Mount Carmel and saw the unifying and calming effects of the church. They counted 22 separate civic organizations in a town of just under 2,000 people. But Nadella doesn't want to talk about things like a good weight, healthy diet, exercise, positive social relationships. Instead, he wants to talk about individual variability in genes, immunological systems, and lifestyle for each person. All of those are worthy subjects of study, but why does that require us to reorder our society into some technocratic theocracy? And where is there any discussion about the quality of our social connections? How many people do we interact with in a positive way during a typical day? The world Schwab and Nadella want to create is devoid of those connections, and as a result, might be the unhealthiest society ever devised by the mind of man. Of course, keep in mind that we are responsible for that too. Like right now in our lives, it's our responsibility to form that. They're not, well, of course, during the lockdown years, thankfully it wasn't that way here, but I know in a lot of other states that happened. But regardless, there was still this fear, and people wanted to stay away from each other because they were being told to stay away from each other. And that caused a lot of depression, anxiety. People fell sick because they were lonely. They couldn't talk to anyone. Now, I know that there's people who are naturally introverted. It doesn't affect them as much. Sure, I get it. But even the most introverted individual needs to have some kind of connection in some way, shape, or form. Might not be as prominent or needed compared to others, but they too still need it. And if they don't, in my personal opinion, this is my perspective, if they don't, and they don't become honest with themselves that, yeah, maybe they do need some connection, even if they're fine with being by themselves. I think there's problems there psychologically, there's trauma there that they have not discovered as to why they have developed that. But I won't say that it's not possible for people to be completely happy being introverted and by themselves with no human connection. I just think it's very rare in those cases. Majority of people need to have connection in some way, shape, or form. And maybe they can go for times without it, but eventually it sneaks up on them and they desire it. They get desperate for it. It's a part of the human experience. It's human, you know? So, So, where did I put? Okay, finally, Nadella moves to the close, which is where he wants to disarm the people of their skepticism. Because if you trust them, you'll let them do things you wouldn't otherwise let them do. Finally, this is going back to the, I think this is going back to what she was saying. Nadella. Finally, trust in today's digital world means everything. In every corner of this world, we need a revitalized regulatory environment that promotes innovative and confident use of technology. The biggest problem is antiquated laws that are ill-suited to deal with contemporary problems. The prescient topics explored in this book, coupled with the dialogue it sparks at World Economic Forum gatherings, are vital contributions to understanding and solutions. The potential benefits are unprecedented. And as this book concludes, public-private leadership are essential. Public-private leadership are essential. Why is that essential? I'm asking that. After reading that, it's a red flag right there. Nadella is a smart man. He didn't get to his position at Microsoft by being an idiot. Maybe he got there by being a yes man, of course, because yes men are very good at manipulating majority of the time. But certainly not because he wasn't smart. Like any good general, he understands the strengths and weaknesses of his own side, as well as those of his enemy. Nadella understands that his side has these technological wonders created by his engineers. This is a great advantage. What Nadella realizes he lacks is support for a great restructuring of society. In order to implement his plans, he needs to get you to trust him. Think about trust in your own life. Many Catholics have been horrified in recent years to learn of the sexual abuse of children by trusted members of the clergy. The clergy or clergy. For some reason, I feel like it's clergy. In hindsight, the trust these parents placed in their clergy members is difficult to understand. However, these were supposed to be men and women of God, right? Who lived in fear of their eternal souls. Not so much. It was difficult for many to reconcile this idea with the wickedness of some supposed people of God. Trust is not something we give people in the absence of a robust system of transparency and accountability. There have been too many examples in history where trust has been misplaced. Nadella wants to repeat the mistakes of the past when he writes, the biggest problem is antiquated laws that are ill-suited to deal with contemporary problems. Could you imagine a government creating a new child care program where they told you that you couldn't observe the facilities or examine the credentials of the people running the facility? Parents would stage a revolt. Yes, very true. Absolutely would. But Nadella just wants you to trust him with these technological changes. Like Schwab, Nadella wants to close the deal with you, promising the enormous benefits while downplaying the risks. Very good marketing strategy, very good salesman. Because if they need to get your consent, they're not going to tell you about the club they've got hidden behind their back if you protest. The hidden club is contained in the sentence. The potential benefits are unprecedented. And as this book concludes, public, private leadership and partnership are essential. Here's the perspective I'm going to take about this sentence. Every time you hear the expression public-private or partnership, I want you to replace it with the word fascism. Because you see, fascism, as practiced in both Mussolini's Italy and Hitler's Germany, was a public-private partnership. This is how fascism differs from communism. The communists seized the means of production and tried to run these industries. They didn't do a good job. Mussolini and Hitler had a different idea. Government and big business were both powerful entities. A battle between these two groups would be unproductive, as communists found out their dismay. But instead of a fight, a cunning leader might understand that a deal could be made. Big business leaders don't like workers who agitate for better working conditions and higher pay. As a first step, Mussolini and Hitler broke the labor unions. Once the workers were disarmed, the leaders were free to attack other countries and do what they wanted with their own dissidents. Whenever you hear the word public-private, I want you to translate it into your mind as a promise that the government will not hesitate to attack the people if they protest against the plans of big business. That's very true. I agree with that. How long is this chapter? I might not be able to finish this whole chapter, but let's keep going a little bit more. In the preface to his second book, Schwab also begins by talking about trust. The cloaked language he uses makes one wish to have been a fly on the wall among the Davos elite when Trump was elected in 2016 and the years that followed. They must have been falling over themselves, wondering whether Trump and his skepticism were the dis-ease or simply a symptom of something much larger that threatened to undermine their plans. Public trust in business government. So it's going back to the Klaus Schwab's book. Public trust in business, government, the media, and even civil society has fallen to the point where more than half of the world feels the current system is failing them. The widening gap in trust between those in the country's top income quartile and the rest of the population indicates that social cohesion is fragile at best and very close to breaking down at worst. It is this precarious political and social context that we face both the opportunities and the challenges of a range of powerful emerging technologies. From artificial intelligence to biotechnologies, advanced materials to quantum computing that will drive radical shifts in the way we live, in which I have described as compromising the fourth industrial revolution. In the middle of the first Trump term, Schwab and his Davos group must have been nervous. According to Schwab, the bottom 75% of the country thinks the top 25% is screwing them. They understood that things were very close to falling apart, which is why he wrote, social cohesion is fragile at best. This isn't me talking. This was Klaus Schwab in 2018. But Schwab is nothing if not persistent. He was still pushing this fourth industrial revolution when he wrote, "We face both the opportunities and the challenges of a range of powerful emerging technologies." He's like that Catholic priest who says to the parents of his parish, "I know there's been a lot of accusations about priests being alone with kids, but I still want to take your young teenage boys away for a long ski weekend." Schwab freely admits that the elite of the world are not trusted by the vast majority of the population, but he's going to keep going. So now we're going back to another excerpt. But standing at these crossroads means we bear a huge responsibility. If we miss this window of opportunity to shape new technologies in ways that promote the common good, enhance human dignity, and protect the environment, there is a good chance that the challenges we experience today will only be exacerbated as narrow interests and biased systems further entrench inequalities and compromise the rights of people in every country. The audacity of Schwab is genuinely breathtaking. The Davos group members are the elite 1% of the world. If there's been a problem with income inequality, human dignity, and degradation of the environment, it's the fault of that 1%. It's a little like the main suspect in a murder being the detective of the crime. That might make for an interesting movie, but should always remain in the realm of fiction. And another thing too that reminds me, it's like the JFK assassination, you know what I mean? And but the whole time it's like the actual detectives on the scene were in the very organization that took him out. That's already happened. Anyways, continuing. Those who cause these problems should not be driving the solution. Schwab lets you know that his brain trust he relies on are the very people who created this mistrust among the population. This book is the product, and it's going back to the excerpt. This book is the product of many world-class experts from across the World Economic Forum's diverse community. Section 2, in particular, synthesizes the perspectives of leading thinkers from the forum's Global Future Councils and expert network. Were it not for their generous contributions of time and knowledge, it would have been impossible to cover the breadth of subject matter to the depth required to make sense of the most impactful technology domains. I also very much appreciate the thoughtful and most relevant reflections provided by Satya Nadella in the foreword. And now back to analyzing. These are people who don't live in your world. These are ivory tower intellectuals, bought and paid for by the corporate titans who are upset they don't yet have complete control over your world. But they don't call it corruption, they call it partnership. Monopoly. While he sets out much of the same argument in the introduction as he does the preface, Schwab tells you exactly what he hopes to bring about at the end of his introduction. The book closes with a vision for systems leadership, summarizing the critical governance issues that leaders from all sectors, along with the general public, must tackle together to create an inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous future. Schwab isn't inviting you to help him create a better future. He's inviting you to help him build your prison cell or your prison hell. Let's keep in mind that before I keep going forward with this, there's going to be some subject matters in here that might come off a little opposing for some that listen, and I respect everyone's different view on things. I don't want you to get any assumptions. I heard this word, so that must mean that she's this or she's that when I'm talking about this topic. I purely want to have open conversation. I like to have open conversation. I think it's important that we all share our knowledge with one another and our different opinions. So I just want to make that very clear here. I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, okay, she must be this. It's already talking about this. And you know what I mean? There's a lot of that going on right now. And I just feel like when people become kind of tainted by the media and mainstream medias or whatever, any kind of media, really doesn't matter. It can kind of give you this type of, it's forming your opinions to shut down other people. And I don't think it doesn't help us progress as a collective, as society, if we want to make things better. So I'm not trying to make anyone feel any certain way, but I just want you to know I'm very open, and I don't want anybody thinking that I'm trying to put you off or in any way, shape, or form. I think knowledge is power, and I'm also going to make another point about this. So, you know how they say, how it says in here, yes, Schwab, he is, I do personally believe that, yes, when you get so rich, I don't know, I'm just speculating. I've never been there, obviously, so I have no idea. But if I could imagine, someone would get bored with all that money. Everyone's running all your businesses. You got nothing much to do. It's like, okay, now the world's my playground. Let's just kind of play around or whatever, do what we want, see what we can do. It's like a simulator game. You know how you guys I don't know if you guys like it, but I love playing simulator games. They're so relaxing, but I love playing them. And sometimes you just want to destroy stuff. Not all the time, but I'm just saying it's fun to control that. That's the same situation here. This is how I see it. I mean, if we enjoy it, I mean, who's to think that someone who is rich and gets bored out of their minds has nothing else to do anymore but to just, they have everything. I want to play a simulator game. Or they'll spark drama because, some people love drama. It's like, oh, make my life more exciting. So I'm going to start some havoc. But I know that I'm going to be safeguarded no matter what. But I want to I want to put drama in everyone's life because it's fun. I don't know if anybody's met somebody like that. I mean, let me know if you've ever met somebody like that, because I've encountered people like that where in my past where they would kind of be on they'll be like the one feeding the drama, but they're stirring the pot, and but they pretend like they're not a part of it, or they'll try and put in like little things and screw people's lives, like literally just making shit so much worse, for no reason, because they enjoy it. They love it. It makes their life exciting for some reason. And there's no conscience there. So, but yeah, I think I do want to end it there though, because there's a couple more pages before it gets to chapter 3, and I don't feel like reading any more of that. We're already like at 30 minutes. So I'm going to end it there with Schwab isn't inviting you to help him create a better future. He's inviting you to help him build your own prison cell. So, but I can even say this, like, you don't need to wait for Schwab to build, the simulator prison cell. Of course, I do think that that is something that they're definitely doing. But you can, even right now, there's people creating their own prison cells right now, like in this very moment, and they're not being oppressed. They're not being controlled. It's because they're choosing to be in a prison cell. So there's two different types of people where it's like they put themselves in prison cells, and then others where they want to do their best to make sure they're never put in a prison cell, right? I think that's enough for now, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night.